Ladies and
Yeah,
gentlemen, Martin Northwood.
thank you very much. First of all, Sean, thank you so much for inviting me to come on. Um, I've no doubt that you guys have all probably dealt with some sort of recruiter in the past through your careers. I personally have been recruiting since the ripe old age of 20, so I'm 24 years into a recruitment career now. Um, and for the last 10, almost 11 years, I've been focusing purely in the MedTech space. Um, Worked for a couple of different companies, quite large ones. Um, and then in 2018, I was kind of fortunate enough to be given an opportunity by quite a large voice in the industry, a gentleman called Dr. Basil Akra, that was formerly from. I see some
We love
smiles.
him.
Some do, yeah. But I'm very thankful for Basil for giving me an opportunity to effectively start my own business in 2018, where I was supporting to have stood whilst I was working at another recruitment company. And I'm just filling you in on the backstory so you know where I've come from and how I've landed at this point. Um, and I met Basil in London, and he said, "Look, we want you to do some recruitment for us. We're building out quite a large team in the UK for Tufsud UK." And I was very happy about that and kind of come away and I said, look, we'll go back and agree some terms with the company I was working with. And he kind of said, look, I need you to stop for a second. I need you to think about this. I want you to do it alone. I want you to go away and build your own recruitment company. Um, and after being in recruitment for 18 years at that point, um, I've always wanted to do something and to kind of come away from the corporate recruitment world where things were very strict on rates and things like this, and you were always taught a very salesy way how to do things. A lot of the processes I didn't like, I didn't agree with in bigger recruitment companies. You know, we're taught how to shoehorn candidates into a role that they're not particularly 100% on. You know, taught how to bend the rules, how to to manipulate clients onto hiring people, and I've got a moral compass, believe it or not, as a recruiter. I don't think a lot of them have. I can't speak for everybody, but I've certainly seen some real shady stuff go down over the years, and I don't agree with it. I think ultimately you're playing with someone's career, and you shouldn't mess with it. So I should just call myself the honest recruiter, I guess. Um, but 6 years ago, when I started MDG as a company, which is the recruitment company, I just recognized that there was a bit of a gap and that the industry was very, very reliant on hiring people through LinkedIn. It's what I do for a living. I certainly find 90% of the people that we recruit via LinkedIn. Um, and I saw a bit of a gap that there's no platform dedicated to our industry. And when I started speaking to clients and started speaking to candidates, there was a few things that was kind of going on. Everybody's driving towards LinkedIn. It's a fantastic platform. It houses over 1 billion users. It's the place to go. However, I remember when LinkedIn first was announced and it was its own private business, and you were never allowed to contact people that you didn't know. And then all of a sudden it became this giant business that then Microsoft took over. They realized that there was billions of pounds to be made from it or dollars to be made for it. And then they started charging. And it's a very, very expensive platform, considering that you cannot, as a recruiter, pick up the phone and speak to someone at the end of the line on that you've connected with unless they've supplied a telephone number. So it kind of got me thinking 6 years ago, I think the industry needs something. It got shelved because the recruitment company was doing well. My focus was solely on that, on making that work and making sure that I could, have a business out of it and support my children in their younger life. So this kind of got shelved. And then at the back end of last year, I thought, you know what, I need to do this because I didn't want to end up in a situation where someone else does it and I sit back and go, why didn't I just get off my ass and get it done? So I've created Connecting MedTech as what I believe to be the world's first dedicated platform designed to join medical device companies to industry talent, and the only place where talent can upload their CV, create a profile, and search and apply for jobs specifically in our industry.
I'm very
There
intrigued.
is,
Do you have a
yeah,
demo to show us?
right. I've got a bit of an issue on this. I've got a full site that's running, but I'm running this off my phone at the moment, and
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to be difficult for me to share it with you
I
and for
could
it to
I
work.
could share my screen and
Please, yeah, go ahead. So if
okay,
you
so what's the site?
www.connecting-medtech.com.
Connecting.
Yep. And then
Sorry.
dash medtech.com.
Okay.
So what we've
I just
created
put it in
is
the chat as well.
perfect.
Thank you. And I'm going to share my screen now.
Awesome. That's quite a bit. Sorry if I'm kind of blushing. This is the first time it's kind of been publicly shared amongst a group of good people like yourself. So it's quite
Have you only
a big
shown
thing
it
for
to
me
bad people before?
No, but not in. I've only shared it with people that I kind of know and that I've worked with that have all been very, very good with the feedback. But
Now,
obviously,
I do want to let you know we have a fellow recruiter on the line. Tiger is a recruiter in the ortho and spine space. So I'll be acutely interested to hear what he has to say.
If I can add one thing before he does. So there is a bit of a caveat to this. This site is solely for medical device companies, whether they're manufacturers, notified bodies, or consultancies or approved bodies. What I wanted to do is keep it completely away from external agencies. And there's a reason for it. So sorry, Tiger, about that, because it won't be, once it's populated with CVs, it won't be available for agencies to use. And one of the reasons for that is when you talk to candidates in a down market, candidates are very fed up. And I've seen lots of posts on LinkedIn of recruiters trying to use them for a source of information, i.e., whereabouts are you interviewing at the moment? Who have you spoken to? What jobs do you know about? And they're lead scraping. They're going to candidates to basically look for leads to be able to go in and look for those jobs or sell a candidate into a job that someone you've just spoken to is already interviewing at, which takes away from their opportunity. And when I mentioned earlier on that there's some things that I don't like about recruitment, that's definitely one of them. I get it. It's part of our job. But I wanted to keep this solely for employers and candidates in the industry and not recruiters.
There's a couple things so I understand. One, I think you're saying that, and I've heard of this before, where if you speak to a recruiter and the recruiter calls the other place, then he or she is going to get like, hey, I brought that person to you, but in fact, the person found the company on his own. Is that what you're saying in terms of sleaziness?
No. That has happened to me recently with a candidate for Northwood, actually, but that's for a different story. But no, what I'm saying is that if a recruitment company has so most recruitment companies will go, right, okay, you've got someone that focuses on QA, someone that focuses on reg, someone that focuses on clinical R&D. They build a market of candidates very tight in that area, and they go out fishing for jobs that are particularly in that area. So if I speak to you as a candidate, Joe, and I say, hey, whereabouts are you interviewing at the moment? Is there anywhere I shouldn't talk to because you've already interviewed or you're interviewing currently? Then what I'll do as soon as I put the phone down to you is find a candidate that's very similar to you, and I will sell that candidate into that company for the opportunity that you've just told me about, which if I get it right, then I'm able to cut your chances as a candidate down by introducing my own candidate. So yeah, that's why I kind of wanted to just keep this solely for the industry, which is kind of counterintuitive from my perspective because I'm a recruiter. I've spent my whole career and I've had a very good living out of it, a very good career out of it. But so obviously here I'm wearing a very different hat.
Tiger, you shook your head when I asked him about examples of sleazy recruiters. You're a sleazy recruiter. What are your tactics?
Yeah, there's a lot of us out there that 95% of recruiting is ambulance chasing, and they use a lot of dark tactics, and it makes the 5% like me and Martin makes our job harder. Yeah, totally agree. Everybody, so I wouldn't use your platform just because I do it a little differently, Martin.
Okay.
I only do startups. I only do orthopedics. And I only do companies that have, I have a really strong relationship with. It's more like consulting. I help them with financing and, contracts and everything. And oh, by the way, you need a director of marketing. I can bring that person to you.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay.
And I'm thinking it would be exceedingly easy for me as an agency to put in false data and access your thing.
As a candidate, yes. Have you just registered there as a?
Yes. Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. Yeah. is that a client? Did you register as a client or a candidate?
as a candidate.
As a candidate. Okay, so
Could I have
if
registered as a client for this example? I can.
no, you can, but it will require me to go into the back end, which might end me being on the call. So for for any client that registers, I
You have
have
to
to
personally put them in.
the back end has to be approved. So and there'll be things that I'll be looking at, i.e., if the email address isn't a company email address, then I will question it and I'll be sending messages back to the user. So they won't be able to access it to find the data. The other thing that's quite key about it as well, it will end up as a revenue generating business, I hope. For candidates, it's totally free. For clients, it's a place that they can post jobs, which right now is free for the rest of this year.
Right.
But ultimately, we'll be populating it as a searchable CV database. And for that, there is a fee that needs to be paid, or a subscription that needs to be paid on a monthly basis, and that's on the site already. So unless they can basically pay for it, they won't be allowed to get through to that information anyway. But yeah, it will be closely monitored to see who joins the site. You'll see already that NAMSA is the first client that effectively jumped on there. I have a good relationship with their senior director of talent acquisition. She knew about me wanting to do this about a year ago, and she said to me, actually, do you know what's a really good thing, because we pay over £100,000 or $100,000 a year for our LinkedIn licenses for our team. And we won't be charging anything like that. I'm not here to try and be a billionaire off the back of it. I'm here to try and companies now are more and more, especially the larger ones, they're adopting a huge talent acquisition model. If you look at Striker, for instance, as an example, they've got, I don't know how many they've got, but in each country they've got multiple talent acquisition people. So if ever I approach them, you just get a blank response, no response, or we do not use recruiters. We've got our own internal team. And then the question is, well, what do you use to find people? We use LinkedIn. So if people are using LinkedIn, they're paying. I can tell you from example, I pay somewhere in the region of £1,500 a month to use LinkedIn.
A month?
A month, yeah, and that gives me.
You, Tiger, are you paying for LinkedIn?
I use Recruiter Lite, so it's about $1,500 US dollars. Yeah,
Per month?
Yeah.
per year, annual.
Per year, yeah. So the light version restricts you from searching properly, and we used it in the recruitment company up until about 2 years ago, and then LinkedIn came to us, and I think on Light Tiger you'll get 15 emails a month. Is that right, or 30?
Yeah, I've never used that many, so it's not a problem for
And
me.
Martin,
I really use my own database. I've got,
Yeah.
tens of thousands of people in my own database. Yeah.
Yeah,
Martin,
exactly.
you referred to the company. I don't understand. Do you have an employer, or I thought you were independent? Just you?
What, the recruitment company?
Okay, who is the recruitment company?
Oh, the recruitment company I own is a company called MDG.
Okay, and how many employees do you have?
4. So we're a small recruitment company. Yeah,
And they're full-time people? You pay them full-time salary, or?
I pay them full-time salaries. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so I mean, you're supporting 5 families with that. That's a great deal to begin with. So this,
Yeah.
for lack of a better, at the moment, is your side project, and the other 4 people are not associated with it.
They're not associated, no. So I've got in the recruitment company in MDJ, I have a business partner that I've had since day one. He's another guy that's supported the MedTech industry for as long as I have. His name's Jamie Todd. But this is my own thing. It's my own baby. He's not involved. The rest of the team are not involved. This is just me.
Are you, Jamie, and whomever D is, third owners of this thing?
Of Connected MedTech?
No, of MDJ.
MDJ, me and Jamie own 50% of the company each.
Oh, who's D?
Oh, okay. So, believe it or not, it doesn't stand for Martin something and Jamie. It was the original name that I had 6 years ago for this site, which was My Device Jobs.
Oh, I see. It's mine and jobs. Okay.
Yeah, it was My Device Jobs 6 years ago when I first started it, and then we just kept the recruitment name as MDJ.
On the screen here, I can, as an employer, buy any CV package. What is in the basic versus the standard? Is it just a matter of one of them's a month and one of them's a year?
Yeah, one. So the yearly one is an upfront cost for the year, and you're tied in for a year. The other one is just a subscription per month with no tie-in.
And I noticed most of this, I'm getting a sense is European because you had the quotes of the jobs in euros, but you're selling in dollars. Is that intended?
No,
It's
it's
$595.
yeah, it's dollars. Yeah,
But
but the idea of it is to take it worldwide, is to take it across the whole market.
okay. All right. I wondered if you did some kind of IP thing and knew that I was in the US, so you were charging me in dollars or something.
I'm not 100% sure it's that clever, if I'm totally honest.
Right, okay. All right. Just a suggestion, and I know Sean's on me because he doesn't want me to be critical. This is a suggestion.
Yep.
It took me a moment to see that this was monthly and this was yearly. That was
Okay.
the difference.
Yeah.
And because I haven't sampled the product yet, I'm certainly less likely for a matter of saving $45 a month to actually it's more than that I see because it's a year, but I'm not going to jump to that before I get a chance to sample the thing. So
Yeah.
okay. So this is I'm thinking brand new because I saw presently there's only 2 jobs listed.
Yes, it literally came onto the market 2.5 weeks ago.
Oh, congratulations.
So yeah, so there's so what we've got so far is IMED Consultancy, which is a company in the UK. They're a small and growing consultancy in the UK for MedTech. They basically signed up their account last week. They haven't posted any jobs yet. The one that you've got under that you're looking at now under Connecting MedTech is actually a job. It's a live job that one of my clients has asked me to put out rather than them jumping on themselves.
Oh,
Which is a notified.
you have 3 jobs listed.
So there's no, there should only be 2 at the moment.
Here's
So I made it just so what you're looking at there is just employer information. Whereas if you go to 4 people, and you search jobs, yeah,
search companies. Okay.
So
IMED is a company that is not doing business with you presently.
that haven't posted a job yet. Yeah,
I see. Okay. All right.
So when we look at that, what it should enable a client to do or an employer to do is go on and build themselves a platform or a profile that tells potential candidates or talent that's in the industry about their business. It's the client's opportunity to be able to sell their business within the platform. So for instance, if you wouldn't mind just clicking on NAMSA for me, I'm awfully sorry that I wasn't able to demo this myself actually, and I really appreciate you helping me out.
No problem clicking. I'm really good at clicking. I click all of them.
So Peggy McGarrahan has very kindly filled out really good information about NAMSA. For anybody that doesn't know them, I'm sure you will know who they are. But for any candidate that kind of goes on and says, "Hey, there's a job at NAMSA, let's have a look," they want to find out about NAMSA, it's all there. It is heavily reliant on the user populating their own information, because we've had some candidates that have joined. Like just so you know, there's about between 25 and 30 candidates that have already populated their own information. What I'm going to do,
I'm just switching around for a moment here.
Yeah,
just looking, but go on. We're talking about populating data, so I'm just looking.
Yeah. So one of the bits of feedback that I've had so far, and I guess that's why I'm here. I'm interested to know what people's thoughts are on it, whether they think could be something that's useful for the industry. Number one, because that was the first thing. The second thing was to make it easy to use for someone. And a couple of the bits of feedback that I've had very, very positive feedback. And I think the most critical bit was I can upload my CV, but I've got to fill out my own profile. Why does it not do it for me? Which is fair. It's fair comment. So the developer that I've got to help me build the site, I haven't built this by myself. I'm not that tech savvy, to be honest, but I've paid someone to help me build it. They're implementing over the next couple of weeks what's known as a CV parsing tool, which basically they'll drag and drop their CV or resume into the platform, and the platform will pick up key bits of information such as name, address, a date of birth if it's relevant, telephone numbers, email addresses, and key bits of information from work experience, and populate a profile for you. So it becomes even easier for you to use.
Okay, so the plan is to let me be able to drag and drop my resume and then it will populate it for me?
Yeah, that's what we're working on at the moment. Is that so that it's create so your profile, rather than spending what's deemed to be a few hours by someone, which is actually probably 5 minutes, it will do it in a matter of seconds and create your profile for you.
Okay.
Hey, Martin, I've got some feedback for you.
Sure, thank you.
So, first of all, this is definitely needed. I mean, this is a big hole, and LinkedIn's becoming Facebook. It's just a lot of noise now, and it's less useful for both clients, med tech companies, and candidates. So it's definitely needed. The biggest challenge you're going to have is the network effect. So you need, for this thing to be really, really useful, you probably need thousands of companies and tens of thousands of candidates at least. And that's your biggest challenge is, every time somebody joins a network, it's the square, it becomes more useful by the square, right? So 10 companies, it's not useful, 100, a little bit, 1,000, it starts to become useful. So anyway, network effect, that's your biggest thing, is how do you get people to join companies? You gotta, like Joe was saying, you gotta create the UI, make the UI as simple as possible and the least amount of steps as possible. And one of the things I would do is allow somebody, figure out if somebody can just put in their LinkedIn URL and it'll populate their profile automatically. That would be huge. So you don't have to upload resumes.
Introduction video URL. This is confusing.
Yeah, so thanks for that feedback, by the way. I really, really appreciate that. It's something I've just made a note of, because I agree that would be really good, really helpful if you could just.
Oh, do you expect me to make a video? Oh, I don't have a video. How would I make a video? And am I not going to be considered because I don't have a video? I also say this part is troublesome for me. I, as a marketer, I think, before medical devices, I sold pudding and insurance and Kool-Aid and all sorts of things. So when you say device category, I'm like, I could do any of these. I wouldn't want to limit myself to show me only domestic, if I'm in monitoring and what's the, somebody on the margin might be monitoring and diagnostic. Well, they're kind of that could be the same. And
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
I kind of want to tag in on that as somebody that's kind of been slogging through this process as a candidate for the last year.
We can't see you. I don't know if you intend that, or maybe we can. Oh, there you are.
I'll get it back.
Yeah, here you are.
So this is where you kind of get into the push and pull as far as the recruiter versus the candidate and what the recruiter is looking for. Because I know, like, I was contacted by a recruiter about a month ago on something.
Sorry,
that basically they crossed me off the list strictly because I don't have experience with class 3. So I mean, I know that they've got their wants on the employer side, but yeah, it gets really discouraging as a candidate to be asked questions that is going to cross you off a list before you even have a chance to talk to somebody.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, I mean, I need to strongly agree, like, especially this device type, this is craziness. I mean, if I'm in the market of, hey, just show me a thing and I'll tell you, we can work on the value prop. I don't care what the device type is, class is, or category is. I'm available. I wouldn't know how to fill this in, and if I did, I'd be like, oh, this is pointless.
Yeah. Okay. And I will say, you have MedTech, right? So this is device. This is Ginger. I've been in biologics, pharmaceuticals, combination devices, and it looks like this device category is only for the US, particularly if you have 1, 2, 3. No, I've worked in Asia, Europe, etc. And so this is really restrictive. I'm like, look, I have the skills. I've talked to multiple different US agencies, notified bodies, foreign agencies. With me, for now, at least, I don't market myself. I do both regulatory and quality. I work mostly with startups, but I've worked in large companies and myself and in small companies. And so I'd be like, now I'm into the ageism, right? Because I have too much experience and I'm too old. That's limiting. But to say you can't apply yourself, one of the best companies I worked for in the 90s was a small breast implant company. It was global, or had operations in Europe, and component manufacturing in the US, and I worked in both companies, but as the quality regulatory. But that said, they took me because I came out of a biologic and they needed a quality manager, and I could talk their notified body off the cliff. He was about to yank their certificate. So I completely switched fields and could talk the language and have it plan. And so you may lose a lot of people if it's just focusing on devices in one region.
Okay. I
Luke,
really appreciate that.
Luke's off camera today. I think, is biking somewhere. Oh, there he is. Yeah, he's biking. This guy, I can't even believe how fit he is. It's ridiculous. But he said that listing your present company is an absolute no-go in his humble opinion.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure why he said that. I don't know if it'll be too much wind and puffing, but you can contact him after this call if you like.
I had talked to him about this earlier. I was like, I wouldn't want my present company to know that I'm looking for a job. And if there's a way that they can discover that I'm looking for a job, then I could possibly get fired for looking for a job.
I would
So
think that merely being on this site would be an indication, because this is not, I mean, at this point, everyone's on LinkedIn. If you're not, it's like, why aren't you on
Right.
LinkedIn?
So
So it's
we
not like, hey, I just posted my job at the resume site, but this one is like, it's new enough.
This signals to your employer that you're actively seeking employment. So what he had discussed with me, and he can address this, is that there's a way to block your employer from seeing
Yeah.
you are on this.
So it's not there yet, but again, we're working on the back end of it to make sure that any employer that works where their email address matches the company you currently work for, it will block out those profiles so they can't be seen. It's not a working thing on the platform at the moment, but it's something we want to get to. LinkedIn do something very, very similar.
I'll tell you that's not going to work though, because I have 7 different emails, and if I find somebody I know looking for a job and my email doesn't match, and I know their bosses, that could be an issue too.
Well, I mean, if you're doing anything on the web and you identify yourself, it's not without risk that someone who knows someone, I mean, at some point you just have to be like, okay, I'm putting it out there because I'm looking.
Yeah.
Tiger, I'm interested in your feedback as a fellow recruiter.
Yeah, a couple other ideas for Martin. First of all, you should design this for mobile first. I mean, I think 95% of your interactions are going to be on mobile, and the forms and everything has to be really simple on your phone.
Yeah.
Second thing is, do you have a notification feature? So when there's a match, either way, it sends an email or text or something.
Yeah. So if a candidate finds a job that they're interested in, they can apply for it directly. So with a message, the client will receive a notification to say that someone's applied for a job with their name and details and their CV or resume. Equally, if you're a client that's logged on and you find a candidate's CV or resume that's interesting, and you've got a job that is listed live on the site, you can invite them to apply for the job directly, and the candidate will receive a notification along with an email to say this company is interested in your profile and have invited you to apply for the job.
Got it. Yeah, I would do the notification by email to the client and by text to the candidate, if you could do that.
Yeah, something we can look at.
I was wondering, is this set up like in my field, package engineering? Most companies, unless they're big, don't even know they need us. So we end up doing a lot of consulting job and part-time work, but they don't even know where to find some packaging engineers. Is this website capable of being set up for something like that? Or, I mean, and I run into the same problems with categories, types, and stuff. Packaging is basically the same across almost any device classification and type.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I'm wondering how we can use this, because a lot of companies need packaging engineers and they don't actually realize it, or they want somebody with little experience, or they just want somebody part-time for a while. So
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I guess the answer is I actually don't know if it's going to be any good for that actually, and I think the reason I say that is because where this product gets placed into a business at the moment would be to the talent acquisition teams that are looking for people. So I guess it depends what they actually look for, and is it going to be a talent acquisition specialist within a company that looks for someone within packaging, or is it going to be someone that looks after the packaging department that looks for someone like you? And so at the moment, it's very geared towards the talent acquisition people that have jumped from my side of the fence and gone internally to try and find the talent. So I don't know at this moment in time if it is going to benefit that actually.
Well, because I have to tell you, I've got 7 packaging engineers I know would sign up for it if we could find out what's, if it could actually be useful to find us. But
yeah, so Jan, maybe you and I could catch up after actually, or next week perhaps, and see if how or what ideas you may think of how we could, where we could position it and aim it. That would be useful, I guess.
yeah,
A couple administrative things quickly. Paul, you wrote a lot. Do you need to jump off, or are you on for a bit?
I do have a hot stop at the hour.
Okay, well then let me have you cut the line. You had a lot to say. Maybe just what are the top things you'd like to bring to Martin's attention? And Martin, we are recording this, so it'll be available for you, as well as all the comments that have been in the chat, which have been generous. Paul.
All right. So Martin, what's your go-to-market? Okay, what do you want this website or your company to be when it grows up? Is it something that you're going to keep as an internal tool? Or do you want to scale this and exit? What are your plans?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I've got plans to keep it as a personal business, to keep it as a tool that I can monitor and keep pushing into the industry. But I guess I don't know where it goes in 5 years' time, because there are much bigger companies that would, let's say, for instance, if I can give you some numbers just behind our industry, there's over 1 million people in our industry that work across various different niche areas. Just to give you an idea, on LinkedIn, going back to one of the earlier points about employers seeing people that work for them potentially looking for work, there's a banner on LinkedIn that you can tick that says you're open to work in the back end for recruiters to see. And that is not limited. That will not cut off you. If I work for Boston Scientific and I'm looking on the back end of LinkedIn, I can see if people are open to work that work for us. I'm not sure of the complexities of what that happens down the line, but there's 258,000 people in our industry that have listed themselves on LinkedIn as open to work across various different niche areas. Going back to the point, what happens if I can attract 25,000 of those people to use the platform as potential job seekers, whether they're passive or active talent? If a company comes along in 5-6 years' time and says we want to buy your company and buy that data, and I think everybody's got a figure. If it made sense, then potentially
okay, guys, sorry to cut you off, but for the sake of time, that answer suggests why we're seeing the site the way you built it. It doesn't seem to be commercial grade, ready to scale. Your confusion, it sort of maps to that because you've built something that seems very powerful as an internal tool for your recruiting firm.
No,
right?
That's not. I know how that looks, but it's yeah.
Sure, that's my opinion, right? Now the question is, if you wanted to scale, then absolutely, I'd say consider those elements, right? Because then you are competing with LinkedIn and all those capabilities. We've given you the group has given you some great feedback in terms of the networking and the network effect and stuff like that. I think the going commercial, your entire framework, and especially now with AI, you've got to have a lot of AI embedded in it to be able to scrape information because it seems like a powerful database, but it doesn't seem engaging enough. And the inflection point when it becomes useful, because if it's a B2B site, and my background is in go-to-market design strategies and stuff like that, in the B2C space, the inflection point where it starts becoming useful, that barrier is very high because you need a lot of users both on the company side as well as on the resume side, right? The candidates. And you've got to figure out the economic model, which is one of my questions. Are you self-funded? Are you looking for investors? And if you're looking for investors, they'd be looking at this at a very different level. So just that's the essence of my feedback. We can go into details later.
Yeah, I very much appreciate it. The answer is self-funded completely at the moment. It's a site that I built out of some money that I was left in a will from my grandmother.
Are you seeking funding?
Yeah, potentially later on down the line I will, but I need it to be a proven model where, you know, I don't feel right going and asking someone for thousands of dollars worth of investment before I can prove that it works and before I've proved that it's useful for the industry. Yeah, that's where I'm at the moment.
Good, because that's my point. That's the message, which is the way it is designed. It sounds like it's self-funded, and it sounds like it's for personal use for your firm. It doesn't sound like it's designed for it to scale, because it's a very different cadence, very different focus, very different utilization of information, very different go-to-market strategy. If you're trying to attract both funding and you say, hey, I'm building something that will scale and sell. It's a different playing field.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it.
I would like to cut the line again because Patricia, I know you're in transition. What are your thoughts?
Hi. Just one thing that I raised my hand for that I wanted to address was the suggestion for, and I'll answer your question too, Joe, but the suggestion for not linking their current company so that it's not visible if they want to jump ship. My recommendation, and you'd have to ask your developers, but to kind of make a configuration on my end as a potential job seeker, to select a button that says, I don't want my current employer to know, and then have that call the first job that's on my list, like on my resume. That might be easier to do from a coding perspective, depending on how you set up this architecture. And then for me, as a job seeker, I would want this to be as streamlined as possible. I agree with having it so that way it just reads my resume instead of me having to re-enter that information. And I would want, the first thing I would look at is this system, how many jobs do you have available? If you only have one client right now, and I understand because you're starting up, but I would want to see that you have a diverse clientele. And who's going to see my resume so that it's not just fed into another system, because I have a lot of recruiters that reach out to me too. And I have experienced that sleaziness thing where I've asked the recruiter, just stop putting my resume forward to people. I don't want those jobs. So I would want to make sure that I feel comfortable with the jobs that are being put forth for me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I understand. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Rick, you've been very patient. Thank you. What is your commentary?
Well, I sent some comments in, and they were before I understood the direction that the site was going. But one thing back when I was using recruiters, that's going back 16 years. I appreciated the ones who equipped me a little bit better to deal with the actual companies. And for 10 years, I volunteered, mentored with a group that help people find work and find good matches on their jobs. And so something that, and again, I don't know if it'll fit into this model, but what if somewhere in there were suggestions, like a suggestion box? Do you want to learn how to do this or something like that? One example would be if you want to providing the opportunity for free or low-cost instruction to candidates on how to vet potential employers, how to interview the company while they're actually interviewing you, and how to select a company that will be a good fit, how to make that final decision. And those were things that I started learning about 15 years ago. And then, of course, I went into business for myself, so I didn't have to do any of that. But I spent 10 years working with people, helping them to do that. And I'm wondering if you provide those kind of resources and equipping, if you might just find that if you did scale, you became a real go-to type person, because you're not only finding solutions and helping them find them, but you're also teaching.
Yeah, it's a very, very valid point. It's a really interesting point to have those things on there. What I wanted to do was, going back to the point earlier on, I think from Paul, I do want to scale this and for it to become the place for people in our industry to go. So I do want to load it up with resources like that. But I have to, my thing about not letting external recruiters on there was to provide a level of protection so that candidates can be safe in the knowledge that they're not just going to get hounded for all of this sleazy stuff that goes on. Because the other sites, there's two other sites that exist for the popular sites that exist for the pharma and biotech industries called eMed Careers and PharmyWeb. And they don't use those kind of things. They give you some tips and tools on how to write CVs or a good resume and things. But maybe, I'd certainly take that on board. But I almost want to make sure that it's kind of understood by the people that I do send this out to and get on board that on this occasion, when I'm talking about connecting MedTech, I'm not a recruiter, because otherwise, Paul, you made a really good point. Am I using this as an internal database for my recruitment company? The total honest answer is no, I'm not. I have to wear a different hat for each business because obviously for GDPR reasons in Europe and legislation over in the US, the two businesses are separate. I cannot share information from one to the other because it's people's personal information. So it can't be shared, which is why it's kind of counterintuitive me running a recruitment business and doing this. But Rick, I totally take that on board. And if there's a way that we can implement that stuff, so there's some almost like AI triggers that are built into it later on down the line to help with that stuff, I'm assuming you'd find that quite interesting, or certainly the industry would find it quite interesting.
Yeah, sure would. And
yeah,
one person to talk to about this is Joe, because he about 12 years ago, he got me from somebody who just bumped into him on LinkedIn, and just to have him run you through those kind of interactions, because that got me to the place where I was willing to spend almost $1,000 on flights, almost $1,000 on hotels, and almost $1,000 or over $1,000 on the actual 10X seminar.
Rick has been a cash cow for me, if you will.
And 2 out of 3 of the years he's offered it since he contacted me, I've made the trek up there, and I'm planning over there, probably in California, and I'll probably be doing it next year too. And wasn't able to go this year, but I'll probably be doing that next year. As a matter of fact, I'm starting to put the money aside to make sure that happens. And it's just, but get with Joe Hage on the kind of contact that he started up, because he was really, really good, really personal without investing a ton of time. And he just did a very good job and got me from who's this to, oh, well, yes, I think that would be a good thing to do. And, 10X has been great for me.
Yeah.
So Joe's got some early interaction, if you will, protocols that he uses, but they're really very personal, and it's just over a chat format. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
And it's not something you would necessarily want to delegate to AI, at least not completely.
Mm-hmm.
But ask him about it. He's good at this. And every time I went, I was glad I went. So he didn't just talk me into it, but he drew me into a really good relationship on several levels. And it's just been something good. I've recommended to other people, and
I think there is something to be said about the human interaction from an honest recruiter. Tiger, you'll agree with me. You get to know your candidates. You get to help them look at jobs in the industry and to help them pick what's right for them. And a good recruiter. And I think that Tiger, you and I are probably on the same page on this. I don't look at a candidate like it's a fee. I look at I'm trying to help them. There's obviously a fee that goes with it, and it's great to be able to have a living off the back of it. But to help and guide and suggest what's right, what's wrong, don't do this, don't do that. There is a lot to be said for that human interaction. I think that where I have to separate myself from the recruitment Martin and look at the connecting MedTech Martin as a technology platform is that, and again, the whole reason, going back to the very first opener, there's so many companies out there now that just will not engage with us. They will not engage with recruiters. They just, we got an email yesterday, for instance, thanks very much, we do not engage with external agencies. And it's happening more and more and more often. So we can't influence placing people in great businesses. If I look at, you'll all know Icon, I'm sure. as a CRO. I used to support Icon. I made 34 placements in Icon between 2020 and 2022. Now they have, or they had at that point, 250 internal recruitment talent acquisition people that are all ex-recruiters. Now they will not go out and work with anybody until absolute last knockings, when they've had the job live for 6 months, at which point it doesn't really matter to them anyway, because it's done and dusted. But they just will not engage anymore. So the point of this was to say, hey, well, look, if your MedTech division have got 25 recruiters in it globally, here's a tool that's got some got some experts in it. Would it be useful for you guys? That's where we're kind of aiming with it. And unfortunately, Rick, on that part, you just have to. I can't influence the candidates' decisions on it, which is it's sad, because I'm having to change where my life direction goes now to suit what is happening in the industry, and that's just. And I actually believe that they're doing it because it's cheaper to build an internal talent acquisition team than spend £2 or £3 million or dollars a year on recruitment fees if you're a continually growing business. So I get why it's happening, but.
Before we conclude, Martin, how is your recruiting business going?
Yeah, I mean, it's been better, if I'm totally honest. 2023, Tiger, I don't know how you found it, but we started in 2018. At the end of 2018, our first deal was done on 2019, and we grew by 100% in the first year for year-on-year figures, 125% in the second year. In year 3, we hit the COVID thing, which was okay. We diversified a little bit into biotech over in Cambridge, and we've done well with 2 particular companies over there, which kept us afloat. But last year, the back end of 2022 and 2023, it almost finished us, if I'm totally honest. But we've started. Q1 was terrible this year. Q2 picked up. And we actually done more business in 1 month in May than we've done for the rest of the year. So it's starting to pick up, but it's been awful. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but yeah, it's been awful for the last 12 months.
It's hard for everybody right now, and the strong recruiters, everything's cyclic, right? So it's market forces. Yeah. But the strong recruiters love this because the weak recruiters all die during these years, and then we emerge and we have less competition. So.
That's it. So
I love it washes everybody out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're a small business. With the recruitment business, I didn't want to scale it. I worked for a 150-person recruitment business before as a managing director, and what I didn't want was the headache that goes with that. I wanted to keep it small. I wanted to keep it private business that could do a bloody good job for people. And we've got testimonials, from the US and Europe that say that we're very good. But trying to open those doors at the moment, it's really, really tough. We opened as a business to specialize within notified body recruitment from the recruitment perspective, and I worked with probably 70% of the notified bodies across Europe, then took it over into the States and started working with the US counterparts, but then it just kind of grew out into consultancy and then into biotech. But yeah, it's tough. Every day is a slog in recruitment, but I think if we just remain honest and true to what we and the values we have as a recruitment business, we'll do okay.
And I think your new venture will smooth out the downs.
Yeah, look, if I can turn Connecting MedTech into £1 million business, fantastic. On the way of doing that, if I can help the industry to be able to get talent and get talent quickly and be able to have direct competition with people, direct conversations with people rather than hanging around on LinkedIn waiting for someone to reply for 6 weeks, then it helps the industry. Because and that's one of the things about having the direct messaging and people's telephone numbers available, because no one wants to pick up the telephone anymore. All right. So, no one wants to answer the phone from a client perspective, but if a client finds a candidate, they can just ring a candidate up and say, I've got a great CV, I've got your CV in front of me, we've got a great job I'd like to talk to you about. Mm-hmm. Then it's helping the industry. LinkedIn's just a business to take billions of dollars from people, and I just want to help. So I really, really appreciate everybody's feedback. Obviously, I'm contactable on LinkedIn. I can share all my details after. If anybody does want to speak to me, or anybody wants to tell me separately that it's a shitty idea and you want me off of this call and off of the planet, then I can take that on board. But I genuinely want to try and make a bit of a difference to the industry by doing what we're doing.
Well, thank you, and it was a pleasure having you today.
Thank you so
Next
much.
week, we are featuring Darren Carlson, a friend of Nellie's. He's joined us before, and he'll be talking about navigating medical standards. So that's a week from today. For Joe Hage and Joe Hage Enterprises, this has been Joe Hage and Martin Northwood.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us today. See you next
Thanks,
week.
John.
Bye.
Thank you.